Okay, let's get started. So thank you all for joining us today and welcome to this week's online event about what it takes to launch successfully on the high street in 2022. We're in the most transformational period in the entire history of high streets, and some of the biggest challenges in this market also represent some of the most significant opportunities to capitalize on this year if you're a startup or a growing local brand looking to either launch your first business on the high street or grow to having a multi-unit operation. The gaps left by national chains disappearing, or at least shrinking and not growing on the high street, need to be filled right now with a new generation of growing local brands with access to the space, support and funding they need to be successful. Ultimately, to really transform the high street most effectively over the next couple of years, we need to make sure we have the right businesses in the right places doing the right things. And so a big part of our mission here at SaveTheHighStreet.org and a lot of the work that we're doing on the ground is around making sure that businesses at every stage of their journey are as successful as possible. And today we're going to be talking about that really early stage. You know, what does it take to be successful when you're launching on the high street? Over the next 45 minutes or so, we'll be kicking off with a Q&A with Paul Clifford. Paul is one of the industry leaders in property management, working with startups, helping them find space and supporting them to be successful. And we've got a lot of interesting work we're doing with Paul around the UK, as well as in Hounslow. Once we've finished having a sort of bit of a Q&A with Paul about what it takes to find the right space for your business, I'll then focus in on what are the top tips for building awareness, interest, footfall, and sales when you're launching. What are those things that you can do to really scale up or ramp up that demand, find those customers and make sure they come to your store, your restaurant, your cafe, your salon, whatever it is that you're looking to launch on the high street. Finally, John will then focus in on how to build a really exceptional customer experience. And John heads up customer experience here at SaveTheHighStreet.org and is, has been doing this again for about 20 years, really helping businesses with everything from their visual merchandising to running events and really thinking about how to deliver really exceptional experiences to customers through the journey. Throughout all of this, we're going to be introducing some of the winners from our Hounslow High Street Startup Competition. So I'm going to be really excited to announce and hear more from Zinat from Biotopia, Samira from Kidwise, and Dan from Dan the Bike Man. My name is Alex Schlagman. I'm one of the founding partners of SaveTheHighStreet.org, and I'm delighted to be your host for today. If you have any questions, ideas, thoughts, or really anything else, add them into the chat box. And as we go through this, we're going to have some space at the end to talk about some of those questions and thoughts and comments you might have. If there's anything we don't cover off today, but you've still got questions, you can get in touch with us at hello@savethehighstreet.org. Yeah, I think it's really, apart from that, it's time to get started. So can we get to the next slide, please? And I would like to welcome Paul Clifford. Paul, are you there?
I am. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us, Paul. So Paul, on this slide here, we've got a few things. We've got high street units, we've got shopping centres, we've got markets and pop-ups. But there's a more nuanced view of this. We just talk before we get into what it takes to find the right space for your business. What kind of spaces are there available for small businesses getting set up in local?
So there's, as you quite rightly say, there's a multitude of opportunities for businesses. They don't have to start in a store of a particular size. And in fact, you probably suggest that you do a bit of groundwork to understand what the right fit for your type of business is. So if we start at the entry level, let's call it that, you'd be looking at markets, of which there are some good and some not so great examples across the country, but that's an area that seems to be evolving. And you're seeing that everything from food to general merchandise to homemade products, etc. Then you've got subprime high streets. So by that I mean these are little shops that you'll see usually attached in areas where there's a bit of there's more residential. So it's where you can look around the corner from where you live and there's a little DIY shop. So that's what we would call subprime. And then you've got prime high street, which is where you go and then the body of your high street. And this is all going up in terms of cost as well as everything else. And then you've got shopping centres, which comes in a couple of combinations. One is what we call in the industry is commercialization, which is where you walk into a centre, you'll see predominantly things like mobile phones, beauties, threading bars, etc. And those are great because you see a centre of 100,000 footfall a week will get 100% nearly of that footfall will pass your product. And then you've got the shops that are within shopping centres themselves. So those will range in size and type and positioning. And once again, without trying to confuse things, you have prime and subprime. And although that may sound, well, where is prime? The easiest way to identify where prime is anywhere is look for brands that you really know well. Primark, Vodafone stores, etc. They will never pick subprime. So if you're near one of those, you're in the highest footfall locations which you can pick. So that's how you would break up those particular types of property opportunities.
What about geographic area, Paul? So, you've got the whole of the UK, the whole of the world really to choose from here. How do you find the right place for your business? What's the right geographic area to focus on?
It's a great question, and probably the whatever $100 million question, isn't it? Where should I be, and where should I start my business? So there's a couple of ways in which you can start to do some groundwork. One would be look at what data is available. So you can buy some of this. So people like CACI and there are other companies, and indeed, say the high street do a lot of work on this in terms of trying to identify the local demand within particular groups. If you haven't got money and you want to do this on a shoestring, what I would always suggest is go to a location where you're thinking and start to sit in a coffee shop and watch. Just look around. Look at the types of people that exist in that area, who's shopping, how many people are carrying bags. Although you may see a lot of shoppers, you want to see them carrying bags because then they're actually physically spending. And then the other thing you do, whatever your proposition is look at how many other people are doing what you do. And that can be a double-edged sword, because that could be, yes, there's a demand because there's 10 of them, or it could be that actually there's probably more than you need. And there were examples as we went through the process of identifying the right businesses for Hounslow. There were good examples of businesses that had absolutely no representation within Hounslow, yet there was clearly a demand because the occupier understood where these people were going to buy this product, and it wasn't in Hounslow. So we were seeing that money migrating out of the borough. So that sort of stuff you can do yourself just through observations. And if there is a local offer that's similar to what you do, go in and look at what they do and how they do it. There's an old IKEA phrase, which is steal with pride. I.e., go in, have never ever any concerns about stealing an idea from that someone does well, but then look at how you do it better or how you integrate it into your business. There's no loss of pride in taking someone's idea who spent hundreds of thousands of pounds in developing it and that you can replicate in your business. So that will start to give you a bit of a steer, and the geographic areas will always be a degree of understanding, a combination of your risk in terms of your investment and a risk in terms of getting the right position in the right place. But that's a really good groundwork piece of groundwork to do. Bit of data, bit of observation, understand who's your competitors, and where is the local public going to buy that product at the moment.
Well, Paul, the title of this section is finding the right space for your business. But if we unpack space, we want to actually get into the physicality of that space. How do you, as a new business setting up, start to work out how much square footage do I need, let alone the shape of a space that's going to be right for my business? What process do you find, businesses, successful launch stories go through?
Right, so it's a great thing, and myself and John, who will no doubt hear from later on, is when we talked about the people that won the spaces, is to get them to visualize their business. So you've now determined your location. Now start to really visualize, and it sounds very almost childlike, but you almost draw up a kind of a plan and a drawing of how your store will look from the outside to the in. So visualize what that outside will look. Now visualize what it will look like inside. And always start with something. If you're doing, for example, clothing products, start with what you would deem about 1,000 square foot and mark it out, create a little plan. And now mark out how many pieces of product you will require to fill that store. Everyone wants a lovely big store, but it will cost tens of thousands of pounds, if not more, to fill it and occupy it. So come up with a plan, and then come up with designs and what we call a mood board. So look at, again, stealing with pride, look at what someone else does well, take photos, stick it on a board, have an aspirational board about where you want to be. That may not be day one, but that will give you some direction about where you want to be in the next 6 to 12 months. But most small businesses will start off with a between 500 and say 1,500 square foot, depending on the type of product. But a plan of attack is absolutely critical. Lay it out, window to visualize that walking through, close your eyes, imagine what that looks like and how your products will flow. And that will give you a really good feeling for the type of space you're in.
Yeah. No, good. I mean, look, you don't have to release these things in a gallery, you know, this is for yourself, isn't it? But actually it's bringing it to life visually and actually creating something that you can kind of picture.
Yes.
Actually how things come together. And interesting, that'll be an interesting segue for the final session. Actually, I think John, as you said, is going to talk a lot more about the customer experience and how you fill the space and do interesting things with it. But before we get even to that section there, what about shortlisting and finding relevant options? You know, where does a business listening into this sort of go to? How do they start that journey in terms of saying, well, I've got an idea what the right area is, I've got a sort of feel for what I want to do with that space, and now I need to build a short list of options?
Right, so there is a couple of routes. So again, let's start with what you can do without involving anybody else. So there are various websites you go into. Completely Retail have a portal of which, if you set up a little account, you can type in Hounslow, and it'll give you a list of the properties, a number of the properties available in that area.
Yeah,
that's a good starting point. Equally, the project that we work on gives a bit more has a lot more involvement in that, because at the point at which you find the right location, it's then getting into the negotiations in and around the rental and how you construct that in a way that benefits your business. So as we've discussed at length, we understand that business, we understand where its projected sales may be, we understand where its net position will be and its capability for rent. That then becomes your start point of understanding what you're going to be able to pay. One of the biggest mistakes, or a couple of biggest mistakes people make when taking space is, one, they pick the cheapest location available, and two, they go in and pay 100% of the rent day one. And you don't have to do that. There is an abundance of space out there. And the door sometimes to get you into the right space in the right shape is having some support, which is what, you know, Sales Flourish and Save the High Street have been working over the last year. So there are opportunities to work with with individuals who want to occupy space in any given area. You just need a starting point. Completely Retail, identify some space. From there, if you're struggling, you know, reach out to one of us, hello@savethehighstreet.org, and someone will get back in touch with you, and we can start to aid you through that process.
Yeah, that's good. Just last one for me at this stage, Paul, is thinking about the right terms for your business. As you touched on there, you know, it's not about paying all the rent up front, but also we're in a world where there's a lot more flexibility around different types of agreements between landlords and tenants. You know, any sort of top tips around this, or any insights around, you know, the types of things to be thinking about at least?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I give you a very simplistic example, if you look at space and you ask what the rent is, and they'll say it's 30,000 a year, for example. Now, what that means is that they want to achieve a 30,000 over at some point during that term. Doesn't mean year one. So if someone came to me and said, look, I'm going to take a space for 5 years, 30 grand a year, I would structure the deal, for example, I would put to the client 8 months rent free. I would then say a step rent of so if it's 20, 18, 22, 25, and then eventually to 30, you get to year 4 and 5. If you then say, I'm in it for the long term, I'm committed to this, it's a 10-year term, you'd probably extend your rent free to even a year. Doesn't mean you'll get it there, but you're in a strong negotiating position. But what that allows you to do is between 6 months, apologies, and a year, you start to develop your business. You start to develop an understanding of its capabilities, and it gives you an ability, and it's really important that you take that net position and that capital, or that money that you're now generating, to then reinvest in the business and to then be in a position to pay your rent moving forward.
Yeah.
But it's not a straight line. You can step your rent according to your business growth. But the first and most important thing, before you determine what that is, understand your business and its potential capability based on what you think it will generate. And you be a little pessimistic, and then look at how that will then be year 2, year 3, year 4, 5. and
Yeah.
make sure your rent reflects that.
Very good. Thanks, Paul. I mean, I think for us, one of the big things we've been looking at in this space is that final point around getting these agreements in place between landlords and tenants that work for everybody. And I think particularly over the last 2 years, we've seen an acceleration around this, with more flexible agreements being an open discussion. And some of the stuff that we've been looking at has been around how do you tie the performance of a business into the amount you pay. But a lot of it is to do with actually giving people that opportunity to test on the high street, to try out being a high street business for a short-term period without that long-term commitment. You know, we've all heard of pop-ups, but we're kind of trying to look at how can we innovate in that space, partner with organizations that are really focused on these things, like yourself at Flourish, Paul, you know, and actually say, well, what does it take to give businesses that opportunity, a new generation of entrepreneurs, that opportunity to try out their offering, see what works before doubling down for the long term. And, you know, one of those really great examples at the moment is this Hounslow High Street Startup Competition. And so 3 weeks ago, 3 separate winners have all launched on the high street. And at this stage here, I'd really like to hear from the first one. Zinat, are you here? Are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm here.
Zinat, it's lovely to hear you, lovely to see you.
Thank
Zinat,
you.
are you okay to just give just a quick overview about your sort of experience, I suppose, moving from being an online retailer to being an omni-channel retailer, as we call it?
Yeah, so it's been really, really interesting. I mean, the first, I've been online totally for a few years, and to have this experience to come out to the high street, to Hounslow High Street in Treaty Centre and quite a, you know, well-known mall has been amazing. Yeah, it's I'm currently here at the shop right now, but the shutter's down for this meeting.
So I mean, it's a learning curve for everybody. You had a bit of a foundation because you were already selling online, you know, but there's obviously a lot to learn. What were the big things that you sort of had to deal with in terms of moving from what you already knew, selling online as a Buyatopia, to being a Buyatopia in the Treaty Centre in the middle of Hounslow, selling to physical customers and joining the dots between online and local?
Yeah, so the first thing is I wanted to know, one of my main aims with the pop-up shop was to see the impact of my physical store on my online sales. I want, of course, first, you know, one of the main things also was to see if customers would be coming in, customers would be buying from the shop. I wanted to see what their feedback would be like. Yeah, so it's given me a really good experience. I mean, it's only been 3 weeks, but yeah, it's been quite good. Another thing that I did was, because I've got quite a large email list, before starting up, before launching, I sent an email out inviting my online family to come and visit me and, you know, meet me, see who's behind the brand, look at the clothes and look at the items that I'm selling, touch them, feel them, try them on as well, because they don't get that experience otherwise with my items. Another thing that I did was on my website, I had like a banner, a clear banner or a sticker. I think it's called a sticker banner, at the top whenever people would navigate, saying I've started a Buyatopia has got a physical store now that you can come and visit. It had the clear address there and the timings, you know, so they knew that, okay, it's not just online now. I can actually go and visit the store and buy from there as well. Other things that I had to think about to make sure that it was successful, or it is successful, I had to decide on what sort of items I wanted to bring into store. So obviously I couldn't bring everything because it wouldn't be feasible to do that. So I had to have a discussion with John. We decided, okay, what sort of things should we bring in? Maybe the best sellers, some new items, some new releases in store, for the customers. You know, it'd be a bit of an incentive for them to come in. I also used my social media channels. So I created a TikTok video, some reels on Instagram, and I think that has encouraged customers to come into the shop as well.
Fantastic. And the physical space, I mean, this is obviously one of the differences moving from where you've been, which is building out that online business, to being local as well. You now have to sort of bring that brand to life locally. And John's going to be touching in detail about some of these things later on. But my first impression is that you just have just a wonderful looking space at the moment. But what was that journey like for you in terms of bringing a Biotopia to life as a local experience?
Yeah, so I really wanted the shop to look enticing. I wanted it to look pretty. I wanted it to look inviting. So I had two really large windows, and we were discussing what sort of you know, what should the mannequins be wearing? I wanted it to be wearing, you know, I wanted them to be wearing the items that I actually sell. I wanted the space to be quite spacious. I mean, I was lucky to get that large, you know, the large shop that you can see on the slide there. And I envisaged, you know, mothers and ladies coming in with their pushchair, with their pram. So I wanted space there. I wanted it to feel a bit like a boutique, quite luxury. And I think that's what I've got. So these are the sort of conversations and ideas we were thinking of.
I think you do. You've got fab space. Last thing from me, Zina, the competition. We've been talking about the launch of this competition. You shine a little bit of a light about, you know, sort of initiatives like that, and actually how you can kind of use your online channels to promote something, but actually have a competition or an incentive to actually encourage people to come into the store.
Yeah, so I designed a competition where customers could come in and they could leave their details, like for example, their phone number, email address, and I would, at the end of my pop-up, pick out a name from a bowl, and this person, this winner, would be able to design their own abaya, and I would just make it and present that to them as their gift. So that was one initiative that I did. Another thing that I did was for the first 20 customers that came into store, I handed out a free, like a freebie, like a free hijab, and I think that went really well. So that literally went within, I finished all my 20 goodie bags within a couple of hours, I'd say 2-3 hours within opening. So yeah, things like that I think really helped to encourage customers to come in.
I said that might be the last thing, but I have one other thing to ask actually, which is space within space. So inside a Biotopia, it's not just a Biotopia. You've actually got another business who's popped up within a Biotopia. Could you just talk a little bit about that experience?
Yep. So I've got another lady who's a henna artist and a face painting artist. So she's been here mainly on the weekends, and so my customers, when they come in, they look at the clothes and they look at her stuff, and vice versa as well. So there'll be people who'll be looking at her banner and, you know, speaking to her, and naturally, because we're in the same space, they'll be looking at my items and browsing through as well. So yeah, that's worked quite well too.
Yeah, so big shout out there. So, you know, I think it's really interesting, this whole dynamic at the moment around, we talk about flexible space, but sometimes when you're setting up on the high street, it might be that your first experience on the high street is actually within someone else's high street businesses, and shared spaces we're seeing really great examples of moving forward. So, you know, really great to see. So if you're anywhere near Hounslow and you fancy popping in and meeting Zenat and a Biotopia, definitely worth the look. You can't unfortunately benefit from being the first 20. I think that promotion has gone.
That's gone.
That's gone now,
Yeah.
but you can still leave your details and get your own designed abaya. You can be in for the competition. You can get yourself a henna, and with a Biotopia, moving from a business that really built up a successful online brand in sense of 50,000 odd Instagram followers, real good growth rate going on the online side of things. But now is your unique opportunity to go and experience a Biotopia in 3D. So if you can pop in, I know you're a big push over the next week or so. So, hopefully some of the people listening in today, if it sounds of interesting, will be popping in and maybe customers for you in the future, Zeenat. Very good, but thank you for your time. Thank you for your time. So, moving on to the next slide. So, turning a space into a space with customers. So, what are the top tips for raising your awareness, your footfall, and your sales as a local business launching on the high street? I'm going to outline a few here, and if anyone else has any that they'd like to share, things that they've done, maybe launching their business, or questions that you've got, chuck them into the chat box. So let's get started. Firstly, I think, as a business moving onto the high street for the first time, don't miss out on making sure you get yourself set up on Google Business Profile. We all use Google Maps to find businesses. We all search for things online to find things locally. And the real baseline for that is making sure you set up your Google Business Profile, claim it for your business, get it well optimized, treat it like your own mini website. You can get really engaging pictures on there, respond to any reviews and comments that people drop in there, and just make sure you get that set up as quickly as possible. Beyond Google Business Profile, which is effectively like a directory online, there are lots of other local directories. And so worth looking at some of the headline directories and making sure you claim your listing. And most of those directories offer a free service. So I would just be out there making sure you can communicate not just to your customers, but to Google as well, that you exist locally, and getting yourself up in places like Yelp and TripAdvisor and Yahoo and a lot of other places, has an impact on your local SEO. Getting a website. If you haven't got a website already, with Zeenat and a Biotopia, she was an online business coming offline. It's one of the key dynamics, a big focus area. I'm seeing a lot of businesses make that transition from the biggest brands in the world, from the reasons why Amazon bought Whole Foods. You're seeing a hell of a lot of stuff happening in Asia where big online brands are taking big spaces locally, but even a lot of the challenger brands online, some of the fast growing brands that are exploring taking pop-up space. So you're seeing a lot of these online brands who have their existing websites and existing audiences online, leveraging those. But actually, a lot of businesses are just there with a great idea and ready to take your first space. And if you're at that stage there, as well as thinking about your physical space, you've got to think about your online shop windows as well. So as I said, your local directory is very important, but even getting to a basic website, and you don't have to do everything and anything that you conceive of on a website on day one, but really important that you get the basics there, really bring your brand to life. One of the things that helps local independents outperform even big brands in their niches locally is their personality gets brought to life in the real world. And you can do that online as well. So on your first version of your website, really focus, not having a huge amount of content, but really focus in on telling your story about what makes you different and better, and ideally bringing your own personality to life. I know this is one of the things that we've been spending time with Zeenat on as well, is bringing Zeenat's personality to the front as part of the brand, rather than it just being about the products she sells. Also, sounds obvious, but make sure it's super clear where they can find you in the real world on your website. Clear map, clear contact information on your website. There's some real basic stuff that you can do from an SEO point of view to make sure you get found when people are looking for things that are about your business. And part of SEO sometimes takes quite a long time, but the real foundations of local SEO, you can start to see results very, very quickly. And Google and the other major search engines, they want to rank local businesses to local consumers who are searching for things on their mobile phones nearby. It's been a big trend in search marketing, for a decade now, where businesses can get themselves really clearly communicated as a local business with this store. And Google, as we know, is on your mobile phone as well as on your desktop and your laptop. And when you're on your mobile phone and they know where you are, they want to show you results for businesses nearby, even when you're searching for something generic. You search for trainers, Google will be looking for businesses who can offer trainers nearby. Give them the absolute basics from day one, and you can start ranking and actually getting online to local traffic very quickly through search engines. Email, something that Zeenat's talked about, from day one. Wherever you are on your journey, if you're listening into this, start collecting emails in a GDPR compliant way. If you want to understand a bit more about what that means, get in touch. But the absolute basics is you need opt-in permission from people, consent from them that you can communicate with them. So an explicit, opt-in from a customer, and you want to be collecting those email addresses now, even if you're not using them right now, because as you get to that point near the launch, like Zeenat has talked about, it's going to become really useful to start to communicate with anybody that you have in your email database that you're about to launch, and then you do launch. And so this is not necessarily about putting yourself under too much pressure about having a regularity on day one. Ideal situation is that you can start to build a newsletter and tell your story through your journey. But really at the start, just make sure you're communicating to people who know about you, that you exist, that you're launching locally, that you have launched. Tell them and be vulnerable, be honest about the situation you'll go into. The most successful email marketing we see really brings to life the personality of the founders and the founding team behind that brand. And they talk about the journey they're going through in launching, as well as the great things you have to offer, like promotions for people who are already in your audience. Email's one channel to be thinking about, but a commonly sort of underutilized channel is actually just text messages. So, you have your own contacts who are people that know you, that are potentially your first most important customers, actually, because they're the ones who will give you honest feedback if you really push them for it. They're the ones who will do you a favor to try something out, and they're the ones who you already know. So start thinking about using WhatsApp and text messages in the early days of your launch to get the word out about the fact that you're about to launch and that you have launched to everyone you know. Be unashamed with it. People want to support. People are interested. There's nothing to be ashamed about, being explicit about promoting your business and your business venture to the people in your network. In addition, what you might find is, if you ask the question particularly explicitly, is that there are often groups of people on WhatsApp groups. We found some really effective stories here, and I think we're about to hear from one a little bit later on, of actually tapping into really useful WhatsApp groups in today's world. So WhatsApp groups is becoming a really effective way to get your word out to relevant local niche communities and start to build those early customers and get those people through the doors. I think one of the big messages I'll just say around this more generally is that, as an entrepreneur launching your business on the high street, it's so important to have that hustle and just be out there, always be closing, always be pitching. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being out there and telling people proudly that you exist, what you're doing, and why you're doing it. And ask people. You don't have to ask people to buy things from you, say, please buy from me. You just say, please visit. Please experience, please share. And people are happy to do it. The businesses often that get the most early sharing on their businesses are just out there unashamedly pitching to everybody. Local collaborations often come out of this as well. So there are local collaborations everywhere. So on your own high streets, so wherever you are launching, go and meet all the local businesses, introduce yourself, build a personal connection. These are not your competitors. Even the ones that offer the like for like type offerings, often there's ways of collaborating in some way. but 99% of the businesses out there are going to be differentiated. Even if they're offering a similar kind of product or service, it might be to a different audience. And those that are offering a different product or service to a similar audience, you can start to find really powerful collaborations where you can cross-promote each other. And again, it's about being unashamed, build that relationship authentically, offer something, be a part of that community, but also, tell them what you could do, what would help you. And again, we're going to talk a bit more about collaborations later on. If Dan's joining us, so Dan the Bike Man and Samira at Kidwise, thinking a lot about local collaborations. There's also a lot of local communities online, and we talked about those WhatsApp groups, but there's Facebook groups, there's Nextdoor, there's a lot of local communities around the general domain or general niche of what you offer. And it's about getting involved in those communities now. You've got to get yourself above the parapet. You are a key part of your sales and marketing plan to drive those early customers. And it's about getting the word out there and being a part of the community. One thing at SaveTheHighStreet.org we've talked a lot about is that sort of busybodies do better. And the people that are really engaged in their local and vertical or industry communities, have seen great impact in terms of their footfall, awareness, and sales. Okay, so next up, I'll talk just a little bit about paid advertising, because there are some opportunities for businesses really at any stage, almost any stage of budget, to test out online advertising. Facebook's got some phenomenal tools, and it has been a real shift, over recent years from a great term I heard from crappy to creepy ads. And whatever your view of the scope of information that some of these big platforms like Facebook and Google have on us as individuals, as a small business owner, as an entrepreneur starting on the high street, you've got to use this to your advantage. And so with something like the Facebook ad platform, you can target in so many ways, really down to very specific audiences geographically around your business. People who are, only interested in this from this kind of age range or demographic, sex, or whatever type of personal information, as well as even behavioral information about, how they've interacted with other sites like your own and similar. And like I said, geographic targeting has been a big theme for all of the online ad networks over recent years, and not just Facebook, but other platforms like Twitter, like Snapchat, like TikTok. They're building increasing sophistication on their audience targeting to allow local businesses to target local consumers nearby who are interested in the things that they sell. Press releases is another interesting one to be thinking about. And so, when you're thinking about getting the word out there, you don't have to have an all singing, all dancing, super professional press release, as great as that might be. But even just telling your story, this is what you're doing, this is why you're doing it, this is what's happening next, and getting the word out there and thinking about media or journalists in the broadest sense. For example, in Hounslow, we've been really sort of in collaboration with Hounslow Council around the launch of this scheme here. And Hounslow have been promoting the three startups, the three winners of the competition that we've been hearing about today extensively through their own channels. In this case here, Hounslow and the Hounslow Matters newsletter and similar types of newsletters that almost every council has are media in their own right. So really engage with everybody who has an audience of people locally that could be relevant to your brand, and make sure they all understand why you exist. Do not think that you have to, in the first instance, have more than an announcement that you are going live. You want to build those relationships and you really want to push that forward. I'm going to move very quickly on here because I haven't got very long, but I just want to highlight a couple of things additional. Social media, there's going to be all kinds of stuff we can talk about in terms of social media. So I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, there are opportunities in so many different platforms. It's about really focusing in those early days about the things that you're going to really win in, not diluting yourself too much. yeah, and really start to understand, how do I start to build a community? And wherever you are on the journey, start working on that community now. We've been supporting startups who already in a lot of cases have an existing community of people, even if they're not selling online, but they've been building a community. They've been building their brand before they go live. And it's an amazing platform if you've nurtured that community before you go live, in the same way like Zinat has talked about earlier on. And, you know, competitions, Zinat talked about a great couple of ideas. There are so many ideas. You know, if you're part of any of our programs here at savethehighstreet.org, speak to your success manager. Let's build a plan of creative ideas for competitions you could be running to stimulate footfall, awareness, and sales for your business. Later on, I'm going to leave local events to John. There's a lot we could talk about there, but having a launch event and mini events, you know, these are great ideas. I mean, as Zina talked about, at the moment, you can go into a Biotopia, not just, you know, get a Biotopia's core offering, but you can get henna. Later on, we're going to hear from Dan the Bike Man, where you can actually go and get a coffee. These are other businesses popping up inside your business, and each one of those can help you build awareness and sales. So those kind of collaborations again of ways that you can really drive footfall by expanding your offering and working with others to spread the word about what you're all about. Last thing I'm going to say here is that what you really want to be focusing on in those early days is finding a handful of your customers at the very least that don't just like you but love you. You want customers, you know, that you really delight. And so later on, we're going to talk about building an exceptional customer experience. And when John talks about this, remember to put this also through the lens of how you get more footfall. Because if you have customers that like you, they not only come back, but they champion in your brand. And the most authentic salespeople of your brands are your customers. Okay, so without further ado, I think I've been talking for long enough, but hopefully that was an interesting run through of some of the top ideas we're seeing working well. Let's hear from Samira. Samira, are you here on the line?
Hi, Alex. Can you see me and hear me?
Yeah, good.
The
welcome.
web.
Welcome. See you and hear you. Good to see you. Good to hear you. Samira, give us a quick overview about your journey here, because unlike Zenat and Biotopia, who had an existing business online, they were leveraging that. You were coming from the other end of the spectrum. You were an idea on paper. So
That's right.
how do you turn an idea on paper a month ago into a real world business?
Oh, it's been a whirlwind and it's been really exciting. It was, yeah, you're right. It was quite a logo and a piece of paper and an idea. And Save the High Street kind of brought it to life by actually making it into a brand. I was given this pop-up stand in Hounslow House, and it was just a U-shaped table in the foyer area. But lucky for me, there were a few events happening at the same time. So there was footfall coming into the actual kind of location. I'm not sure if you're aware, you know, or people on the call are aware, Hounslow House is the London Borough of Hounslow headquarters. So we've got lots of kind of footfall coming in for different kinds of things, lots of staff working here. And so what we initially did was set up a free event. So when we launched, it was British Science Week, which went really well with our kind of product and what was the service we're selling, which is science practicals. And what we did was we did a free workshop for everyone that came, and that generated lots of footfall and lots of interest. There was and talking about WhatsApp groups, all of a sudden, I think I went viral WhatsApp. I'm not sure if that's a thing, but I felt like I was a viral WhatsApp thing. And people were coming up to me and saying, do you realize you're in every homeschooling WhatsApp group? And that was just like a wow moment. And again, like you said, the organic review. So, you know, people were coming and they were, you know, really enjoying the experience and then passing the word on. And that generated more footfall. I started charging for the workshops and it continued. So obviously people had a good experience and they then wanted to come back and also recommend it to their friends. So initially I only had it till the 25th of March, and because of the footfall, it kind of gave me an extra bit of time. So Hounslow Borough then extended my time to the end of April, which has been great.
So how can people, and who are you speaking to here, and what's your audience, and how have you got through the journey of saying, well, look, I have an idea here, but I'm actually starting to turn this idea with an expected or a thesis around my offering and a thesis around my audience into something that's a real business?
Well, and honestly, it was an experiment for me. So it was, we were testing the idea. Does this community actually need this kind of offering? And is there a niche for it? And obviously there is. And we've managed to generate lots of footfall into Hounslow. So we've had lots of people coming from other boroughs and, kind of saying, we've been looking for something like this. We used to travel further afield for this, but now we know that we can come here. And when they're coming here, they're kind of visiting the high street. They're doing things, experiencing shops that they've not done before. And then we form those collaborations with Zenith's customers. Lots of Zenith's customers have, kind of children, and they've seen in the Hounslow Herald that Zenith's one, and obviously they know her, so they then kind of said, "Oh, what's this?" and kind of moved on from there and come to visit me. So, yeah, it's been really interesting.
And what's next for Kidwise? Where do you see it going from here now, Samira?
Brilliant. So now that I know that there's a need for this, and this could potentially be a really good business brand, and kind of there's lots of different ways we could take this. So the offering I was thinking initially with the schools will kind of stay, and then we can offer it to the homeschoolers. The homeschooling community was the community that I actually had not thought about and didn't really realize existed, more so because of COVID. So kind of offering this service to them, and then also forming collaborations with the London Borough of Hounslow. So within the borough, there's lots of different departments that are quite keen to take this offering on and take it further.
Mm. I mean, this is a great example again about these collaborations, just being out there in the community, whether it's schools and gyms and WhatsApp groups and councils. I think you're a great example, Samira, of someone who really sort of brings your brand to life and is unashamed just to get out there and pitch it. They've designed you flyers, and you're literally out there with everybody you know and spreading the word. And the results are very clear. You're getting traction from a standing start. It is possible for anybody listening in to really move from 0 to 1. If you're out there and your passion and enthusiasm comes through.
That's right. And I mean, it was just 2 tables put together, so it's not a physical space, but we created it like a laboratory by using props. So we gave them lab coats and goggles and set the ground rules. You can't, this is a lab, you can't use you can't eat anything. Telling them those kind of things really made it an experience for them, although it's just 2 tables put together. But it's kind of, you can create that atmosphere, I think.
Well, your team of scientists that you seem to be there with in the photo look all very, very professional and capable. I think we're all in safe hands.
Excellent.
Very good. Well, look, thank you for your time, Samira. We're going to move on, but if you have sort of young children, I think we're going to be looking at slightly older age ranges as well. And you're interested in sort of bringing to life science. And I know Samira's vision is to take it even beyond science into the wider STEM and make science fun and make STEM fun for young people. So if you're interested in that offering there, do make sure you either pop into Hounslow House if you're near enough, or check out Kidwise online. Okay, so moving on. So let's take a step back. Where are we? So you found the space. You found the right space for your business. You've really put in place things at that sort of pre-launch and launch phase to really ramp up awareness of your business and traffic and footfall and sales. But how do you create that exceptional customer experience like I was talking about? How do you really focus on making sure that customers not just like you, but love you, and that you really deliver on something that's differentiated and fantastic? So at this point, I really like to bring in John Abatti. John, are you there on the line?
Yeah. Hey, Alex.
John, welcome. So John heads up customer experience here. And John, I'll pass over to you to talk a little bit about, what does having a great customer experience mean? What are your tips and recommendations?
Alex, it's like a chain. Everything we've been talking about in this event, they're all links to a chain. And at no point you want to break the link. And one of the most important links is, after you found the space, like you said, and you've done all this marketing for the space and you've got your business all set up, Now it's time to meet your customer. Your customer is going to experience you. They've found you, they've been attracted by your marketing, they've heard about you, and now is the critical moment where they're going to come to you. So you want to make this the most memorable experience possible, because this is the most important point. They're coming into your store. They're coming into your, whether it's 2 tables or a 7,000 square foot New Look store, they've now come in. They've looked at the windows, they were attracted. And what's very interesting is for online brands like a Biotopia, where we call them digital firsts, is that you give the customer a very good online experience, but now you get to meet them face to face. It's a whole other, it's like another dimension has just opened up for you. And you can now create this 3-dimensional living space where they can come in and touch things, feel the place, feel comfortable there, learn, and most importantly, meet you and get to interact with your products in a rather intimate way, which quite often can help cement the deal, can get them to continue to buy from you in the future and become loyal customers. Sorry for the
Okay, it's okay. It's very quiet in the background. Don't worry.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So again, really important for online businesses to make this physical step. Now, how do you create this gold standard customer experience? Where you would start with would be the customer. So it's really important you understand who your target customer is, because this is their journey with you. So of course you have your own personality, your own vision. As Paul said, when we interviewed everybody, they had, we asked them what their vision was. Well, that vision that you have also has to be linked with the vision that they have of you, the vision you want them to have of you. So you're basically leading the entire experience, but it's all from their point of view, from the customer's point of view, from their perspective. Yeah. So it's quite important to understand who your customer is, not only trying to figure out who you are, but who they are. And then try to, and quite often your customer doesn't necessarily have to be you. One thing I hear quite often with business, even large brands, managers of stores, they start to use like, I don't like this. I don't want this. I don't want that. But are your customers you? And maybe they are, but maybe they aren't. So you have to kind of think about it from their point of view, and create that experience around them. So once you've figured out like who your customer is and your vision and their visions match up, now how do you actually do that? So there's 2 major parts to it. You have to, there's a physical or a tangible and an intangible aspect to it. So the physical part is like what we did with all of the winners and Hounslow, was we created a physical space that represented them and best suited their customer. So and we, most importantly, what we wanted to do was to create, all of those spaces should be experiential experiences, because what's happening now is that people can shop online and they don't really need to go shopping physical. Especially if you're an online brand, they could just continue to buy online from you, but that has its limitations, as Zinat brought up. So you really want to make the store now is more than just a place with shelves or hang rails with stuff on it. It's really an experience space. So retail designers now, what they're doing is they're designing spaces that are flexible, that could become an event space or a retail space. It can move around, it can change. So because everybody knows now they need to have experiences, events actually happening in the store, and that needs to happen very quickly and very often. So you've created the environment, you know what the look of the store is, you've built a store that, or a place that's flexible, you can have events, you've made it interesting for the customer to shop, you made it easy for the customer to shop. They often call visual merchandising silent selling, but it's, again, this is a place where they've come for human interaction. So now the second most important part is that customer service, that more intangible experience that they're going to have. It's not something they see, it's not something they can touch, It's something that it's a relationship they have with you. So, I make this mistake because my job is to make stores beautiful and visual merchandising beautiful, but I forget that there are human beings coming in and they're going to touch things and they're going to experience things. And
break things, John. They might even break things.
They might even break things, or they might even steal things, which happens. So with my visual merchandising hat on in the old days, if I was in the store when the customer was in the store, I'd be like, oh my God, don't touch that. I just merchandised that entire area and you've just moved that red shirt over to the blue shirt. So now I got to move it back over there. But then as I started to work with independents and work with Save the High Street, I realized that, one of the most important parts when the store opens is the interaction the customer has with the salespeople or the owner. So when they come in, do you welcome them? They're making the effort to come to your space. So what effort are you going to return to greet them, to say hello, to engage them in a conversation? Or are you just going to ignore them and let them self-shop? Well, they can self-shop online. That's perhaps not why they've come to you. They've come to you maybe because they would like to have a chat with somebody. Of course, some customers will sit and chat too much, so you have to manage that. But it's, again, one of the most important parts of the customer experience is the experience they have with the people that they're going to talk to. And okay, of course, we're in England where people don't really like to talk to people so much. But there are still ways you can interact with people and break that ice and engage in a conversation with them, not hard sell them, but maybe talk to them about something personal or the weather or what a beautiful child they have, or, oh, I love your shoes. And not that it's too contrived that the customer feels like they're being hard sold, but it's more like that you actually care about them. And you do care about them because number one, they're potential customers that you want to sell to, but number two, they're fellow human beings that you're sharing a space with. And you're as a person working in the store, you're there a long time in that store. So why not make it an interesting experience for you too, just to meet people? And
quick question from me. Do we have Dan on the line? Because I'm just aware we're going to carry on a little bit longer. If anybody can stay, we'll finish this off because there's still a few things to talk about. But I'm aware some people are going to have to drop off the line. And I don't know whether Dan is on the line and could join us if he is still here. If he is, it would be nice to sort of just hear a little bit about his story for some of those people that are live at the moment, but maybe can't stay with us beyond the hour.
Yeah, I am here. How are you doing?
Dan,
great, Dan, you made it.
He's here, and he's in his store as well.
Oh, don't, it's been frantic. I've had about 5 people come in since this started, just like having to try and manage both at the same time. But it's all right. I can't complain. But yeah, I think this ties in quite well. I think that's part of doing good customer service. It's just being as available as you possibly can and just commit that little bit of your time to speak to people. And like generally speaking, everyone loves that. So yeah, from my eyes, the core of good customer service is just being there and being friendly and spending those 5 minutes with someone. They normally really appreciate it. Yeah, you do have people try and take advantage, you draw some lines, but for the most part, just try and be as accommodating as you can, and you're 95% of the way there, as far as I can tell.
Quick question from me, Dan, because John might have some as well. But you were already a business. You were doing mobile bike repairs before you've now got this great space we can see behind you. In terms of actually providing this in a fixed space environment. What were the big differences for you in terms of providing a service, on a mobile basis versus moving to having a home, in a big old new look in the middle of Feltham?
Yeah, the big difference has been that it's a lot more disjointed. People are pulling you from pillar to post a lot more, but I think that's only a good thing. That's business walking through the door. If someone comes and talks to you, that's more work. So yeah, I'll stop what I'm doing for 2 minutes to go and deal with the new business that's coming through. Like, that's fine. It's all good. It's all positive. Yeah, it's just, I think that where when you're mobile and you're on the phone, you can decide, you can dictate to your customers a bit better when you deal with them. Whereas some are physical, you need to be more reactive to the customer demands. As it goes, I think this suits me personally quite well. So like, I'm definitely not complaining, but yeah, I can see that would be that's a potential challenge that other people doing this might want to look at. You're more at the customer's beck and call when they can come into your space and demand your time. They've got every right to my time, but they're pulling you away from what you were doing, and you need to kind of find a way to manage that a little bit.
John talked about being more than just selling product, and in your case, more than just offering a bike repair service.
Yeah,
and it needs to be more than that. There's a lot happening in yours, isn't there? There's a lot happening.
We've got lots of stuff here now. We've obviously from day one we were collaborating with Shri and Sahara from JJ Ceylon, a local catering company who have set up a Sri Lankan cafe also in the same space. So it's just things like this making a deeper customer experience. So if people have a half an hour wait for me to get something done, they've got somewhere to go still within our site that they can just chill, have a coffee, maybe a milkshake, they might get some food, but they've got that space to go and be in and feel comfortable, not feel like they're imposing in any way. I think that's really been an important plus. We've also now started a collaboration with a couple of local artists. We've got some really nice paintings to be done from me. We're also getting people come in specifically for that, which is brilliant. Yeah, so I think collaboration is a big buzzword and something that we all need to focus on as high street businesses. If that be that collaboration with businesses elsewhere or within the same space, it's just all a plus, right? You're reaching more people that you might not have otherwise got hold of. You're enhancing the customer experience for people that are already coming through the door. Yeah, that's a part of it, 100%.
That's it. Sri Lankan food, bike repairs, art. I think there's a second-hand bike exchange. There's training for kids on cycling. You know, it's an extravaganza in there.
We've got so much space that it was the obvious decision was to just go as broad as we can, do as much stuff in here as possible, and just make it a really nice place for people to be. Yeah, that's what's selling the services, is the other peripherals, making a big difference.
John, I know you were sort of hand in glove with Dan through the journey of turning this into, you know, the extravaganza that it is. What was it like for your experience, having launched various businesses on the high street before, in terms of working with Dan and turning, you know, a mobile bike repair business into this, I call extravaganza for the local cycling community in Feltham? You know, how was that experience from your side as a professional in this industry?
Well,
before John starts, I'd like to say that we would be nowhere visually without John. I've got no eye for any of this, and the fact that the shop looks even half as good as it does is to John's testament.
Thank you, Dan. It's not the place for complimenting me, but I guess it is. But anyway, it's going to make it sound weird what I'm going to say, that actually it was quite easy to come up with. We had very short amount of time to come up with the concept for Dan's store. So Dan and I kind of came up with that like within a day or so. The execution of it, you know, is another thing. So you have an idea, then you have to do it. But the idea came quite quickly because we understood what Dan did. We understood Dan's vision. And then we thought about the customer experience. What is the customer going to experience? What do we want? We want them to kind of enter this world of biking. And we knew it was going to be about children. So we did all these children's, it all just flowed from that. So it actually is kind of a very flowing process. And it was really exciting for me because it was what we call new retail. His location is new retail. And new retail is experiential retail. It's the future of retail. So it's really exciting to get involved in projects that are visionary like this, that are thinking about the future of retail. And it's great to see how it's working. You know, it is working for Dan. You know, this experiential retail sets him apart from other bike repair guys. He is Dan the Bike Man now. So we wanted to establish him as an authority in biking, and all these experiences around it help do that. They build Dan the Bike Man as this much bigger picture than just a guy fixing bikes.
Yeah. Oh, and look there, and there Dan is. Dan the Bike Man. And I think nowadays he doesn't wear that hoodie anymore. He wears a hoodie that says Dan the Bike Man on it. So we'll see whether that becomes his new merchandising place. Yeah, exactly. There are other Dan the Bike Mans out there. You know what to do. If you're interested in cycling, you're anywhere near Feltham, this is worth a look. You know, you got to go check this place out. You know, see this, you know, what was an old new look reimagined into something which is, you know, obviously helping Dan, you know, deliver against his vision. So, you know, well done all on that front there. Dan or John, do you have any final thoughts on this side of things?
No, it's all of this is really about wowing the customer and creating customer loyalty. It's about getting them to come back over and over again, whether that's coming back online or offline. But it's really about building your customers and building that relationship with them, and make your customers your brand ambassadors.
Yeah.
You know, that they will talk about, hey, did you hear about that really cool shop? Oh, I love that shop. Someone asked, you know, a good place to buy such and such. Yeah, go to this store. I love it. That's your end goal.
Yeah, it never stops. You know, customer centricity has to be a principle if you're going to be really successful business for the long term, but it's never more important in those early days. You know, that shift from finding a few customers that like you to finding even a handful of customers that love you is a big part of the journey of every successful local business. Great. I want to say a big thank you today from everyone who got involved in this today. I mean, look, we can see even on the screen, I'm watching Dan dealing with a young girl that's coming to get the bike repaired or join one of his events in there. You know, we've got 3 businesses who've given up their time to be a part of this. I mean, Zinat literally closed her store. Big thank you to all of you for sharing your insights on the journey so far. You know, as a mission at SaveTheHighStreet.org, we're all about transforming and strengthening high streets. And a big part of that is making sure that a new generation of high street entrepreneurs have access to the space, support, and funding they need to succeed. And so, you know, there's a lot happening here. We've talked a lot today about Hounslow. So there's, you know, 3 winners, as well as some of the runners up to that competition actually popping up inside of their businesses, you know, who are actually turning their ideas into a reality at the moment. But there's also a whole load of other people who applied for the Hounslow High Street Startup Competition, some of which have already been moved forward onto the runners-up list and are already getting support around this. And, you know, hopefully this is really sort of getting you on that journey towards, you know, realizing those dreams in the same way Dan, Samira, you know, and Zinat have been actuating over the last few weeks here. Anyone else that's listening in as well, if you're interested in starting a business on the high street, you know what to do. Get in touch with us, whether you email us at hello@savethehighstreet.org. We put a link on here to bit.ly/join Joe 2022. Joe is our digital assistant platform. Basically, it behaves a bit like having a team at your fingertips, and it's really where all of our support is centered. For everyone who's on any program at SaveTheHighStreet.org, you know, if you're right for Joe, you get moved on to Joe, and it basically helps guide you to putting in place a plan to achieve your goals. So, yeah, if you're really interested in sort of taking your business to the next step and you're not already on one of these programs, you know, either get in touch with us or, you know, start the journey by checking out bit.ly/join Joe 2022 or visiting us and getting in touch with us through any of the other channels. And like I said, you know, we see an optimistic future. The beginning of this presentation, the beginning of this session here, we talked about the fact that, you know, one of the biggest challenges in this market today is also one of the great opportunities. with these new gaps that are emerging, whether it's old, large department stores, or whether it's other chains that we know and have used for many years, generations in some cases, that are shrinking or even disappearing, it's leaving gaps that will be filled by a new generation of startup entrepreneurs. And if that sounds like you, and if you're looking to take your dream and turn it into a reality, or take your business that's not on the high street and make it an omnichannel or high street business, then get in touch. And in the meantime, I wish everybody a fantastic afternoon, a lovely day whenever you're listening to this, onwards and upwards, and we hope to hear from you soon. Thank you very much.